Hello, how are you today? Well, first of all, two things. Yes, sometimes I don't have my hair free and I wear a top knot. And second, I don't know if you will hear some noises today, but my neighbors, the ones upstairs, they are completely crazy this afternoon. So if you hear anything, it's because of them, okay? Well, we're going to start with the next part of the lesson, but first I wanted to say again, congratulations because of how you worked. Oops, that's an email. Because of how you worked in the Kahoot the other day, it has been awesome. But remember that I will just take into account the first attempt that you have finished, okay? Because I understand that then later some of you want to enter again to see if you finally arrive at the top of the podium. But I have, as a teacher, I can see where you have when you have tried. So sometimes when you enter, the system fails and you don't finish the attempt. I don't count that one. But if you have finished the attempt, the first one is the one that I'm going to take into account, okay? To be fair with the rest of your classmates that just try once. But when we do this again, you should be you should not be stressed. I mean, you have all the time to do it. It's not that you have just 30 seconds to answer the questions or anything. You have plenty of time, okay? Good. So, moving on a little bit, remember where we are. We are studying the simplest life forms. We have studied the first kingdom of life together the other day with monorans. We also saw what is a virus, but today we're going to focus in the second kingdom of life, which is prototists. And prototists can be divided into two different groups. Today we're going to study the first one, which is algae. Let's go. Hello. It's because I'm here. Okay. Before we start, remember that I have told you that Protoctist is a very complex kingdom. In fact, there are theories that say that in the Protoctist kingdom, we could even divide all these organisms in 16 different kingdoms because of the variety of individuals that we can find there. But in general, when we study a Protoctist kingdom with people of your age, we normally divide them into these two groups, algae and protozoa. Today we're starting with protozoa. Sorry, with algae. Oops, with algae. We're going to start with algae, which is the first one. Okay. Well, so first of all, remember that algae are like the plants in aquatic environments. Okay, so they are going to be autotrophic organisms with eukaryotic cells, and some of them can be single cell, as the ones that you see here, but others can be multicellular, forming colonies. Okay. Let's see some pictures. Here you have, again, a picture of a unicellular algae, but then some of them can be really very big, okay? Algae can be really big. We're going to see it later. They can have hundreds of meters. I mean, they can be huge, I promise you. So, yeah, two types of organisms in this case. They can be single-celled or multicellular. They normally live in aquatic environments. They can be in fresh water environments, in seawater aquatic environments, and normally we can also find them in moist soils and suelos húmedos. Okay, so anywhere that we can find a humid environment, we will find algae. Some of them, as you have here, I think that this is interesting. Every organism that lives in the water can be classified into three different categories depending if they live up in the water or attached to the soil or in the middle, okay? In the case of algae, they can belong to the plankton community, meaning that they can be floating over water. I don't care that we're talking the seas, a lake or a river, but they are floating. Or they can belong to the benthos of the community. In this case, they are algae which are attached to the bottom of the lake or of the river or of the sea, okay? So remember that, plankton floating, benthos attached to the soil. And in the middle, we can find, in this case, not algae, but well, we can find, as you see here in this picture, the organisms which are swimming, okay? Normally fish, of course, another type of organisms. So, single-cellular, multicellular, present in all different types of aquatic environments, at the top, attached to the bottom, or whatever. You see, they are worldwide spread. Oof, I don't know if I have said this word correctly. Okay, as always, how do they perform vital functions? How do algae perform vital functions? Well, in the case of nutrition, as you already know, they are autotrophic, so they're going to do photosynthesis. Oops, A quick revision of photosynthesis. Well, here we have a plant that would live in the terrestrial environment, but remember that what they need is water and mineral salts, carbon dioxide, and sunlight, and they produce oxygen, some water, and then glucose as well, their main nutrient. In the case of algae, as they live in the water, this water is plenty available for them. Mineral salts, they are also dissolved in the water, and the carbon dioxide that they are going to be using as they live in the water, it's carbon dioxide that is also dissolved in the water. Okay, so in the aquatic environment, they have the same ingredients for photosynthesis as any plant in the terrestrial environment. Remember that. And they are going to produce the same oxygen for the organisms of the ecosystem, of the aquatic ecosystem in this case, and nutrients. Okay? Good, let's move on. Talking about reproduction, in the case of reproduction, they can have the two different types, okay? Asexual reproduction or sexual reproduction. And in some species, they can even have the two of them at the same time. Some of them, in some cases, in some parts of their life, they reproduce sexually. In some other parts of their life, they reproduce asexually. So finally, interaction. Well, some algae can move using flagellas, we have seen in bacteria, others cannot move. And one of the most beautiful things that they can do, which is very special in them, is that some of them, some planktonic algae, so the ones which are floating, can be bioluminescent. So I looked for a video to show you this, and I want you to enjoy it a little bit, okay? Then we comment it. Okay, what you just saw is real, and they are algae that can produce this glowing substance. They use it to avoid predators, as normally in nature, these bright colors or beautiful colors, sometimes it is, hey, I'm poisonous, don't come and eat me. So this is what they do, and they just contain tiny vacuoles inside them with these type of substances that finally glow when they move or something like this. Beautiful, right? We have this in the north of Spain, in some beaches, for example, in Galicia. Sometimes in determined moments of the year, you can see them, which is awesome. I have not seen them, but it's something that I would like to do one day. Okay, so nutrition, autotrophic, reproduction, both types, interaction, well, not a lot of interaction in them, but in some cases, as you saw, they can be really, really nice. Nice classification, very easy. We classify algae according to the colors that they have. And in this case, they can be green, they can be brown, or they can be red. So we have here, some examples of each of them. Green algae, remember they can be unicellular or multicellular. This is the typical example that we normally find in the beach in summer. It's called Ulva lactuca, la lechuga de mar. And well, many different types. Okay, they are the most common ones. Then we have the brown algae, which are also really common, especially in the north of Spain. Some of them can be huge in this case. Okay, there's one species which is called sargazos, also in Spanish, and they can be covering huge areas of the ocean. Sometimes they even create like oceans of algae. And I also looked for a video for you to see it. You see, you're hearing my neighbors right now. These great maps. The floating rainforest of the sea. O sea, como la selva flotante del mar, okay? So in some cases, remember, huge ones, such as these ones that we just saw that belong to the brown type, okay? So yeah, we have seen the green ones, the brown ones, and then the red. These are less common and they are normally belonging to the benthos, okay? So they are normally attached to the bottom of the sea. That's why it is not so typical to see them, but they also look really, really beautiful as you see here, okay? Well, so classification, very easy. Green, brown, and red. The colors are different because, well, remember this because this is important. All of them have chlorophyll because they have to do photosynthesis. So all of them contain chlorophyll. So then why are not all of them green? Because brown and red algae also contain other pigments which are in a higher quantity than the green color chlorophyll. So finally you don't see them in green, but you see them in the other colors of the other pigments that they have, okay? Good, so vital functions checked, classifying them checked. As always, we need to talk about the importance of them. Well, the first point of importance of algae is again in ecosystems. Why? Because they are the producers in the ecosystems. Again, remember that they act like the plants in aquatic ecosystems. So they are going to produce the oxygen for all the organisms in the aquatic environments, and not only the oxygen, because they are going to be also the base of the food chain. If this is an algae, here comes a fish which is going to eat it, and it starts all the food chain. Okay, so producers of oxygen and nutrients for the aquatic ecosystems. Important, super important. And then we also use them in food production and in industry. Nowadays we use algae because we are very used to a type of food which is called sushi. And now eating algae now in our country has become something not so strange. In other cultures, for example in Asia, they have been consuming them for a long time. Okay, nowadays here in Europe we are starting to do it as well. They are kind of nutritive. They contain vitamins and so on, which are important for us. As you see here, there are other things that we can do with them in food, such as, for example, thickener in food, lo que llamamos en castellano espesantes para la comida, or yeah, to make our food like has this appearance like gelatin and so on. But yeah, as I was saying, they are starting to be important in direct food production because, as I was saying, they are rich in vitamins, in fiber, and in proteins. And then they can also be harmful for us. It is just an exception. They are not normally bad, but sometimes certain types of algae, they can produce what we call the red tides, las mareas rojas, which is also something that we suffer in Spain once in a while, especially in the north. This happens because these algae produce some toxins which accumulate in mollusks. Here you have some pictures, I think that I looked for them. You see, this is how they look. I think it's clear, pretty obvious why we call them the red tides. The bad thing is that these toxins can affect fish and can affect mollusks. And if we consume this fish full of these toxins, that can also be toxic for us. So when this happens, for example, in Galicia, they have to stop fishing or they have to stop collecting all these wonderful things that we have in Galicia, mollusks like mejillones, almejas, and so on. Because if we consume them, then that is going to be toxic for us. Okay, that's the only exception. It's not very common, but it can happen sometimes. Nice. So let's see if I'm forgetting anything. We started talking about how they look like, where they live, how they perform the three vital functions, how we classify them, and finally, why they are super important for the ecosystems and for us. So we're done. Okay, I hope that you like this lesson. I'm going to tell you later what you have to do to grade a little bit if you have learned the lesson or not. But as always, remember that you need to work in the diagram for this part of the lesson. You're sending me some examples. I don't want you to be copying everything. Remember that when we are together in class, the diagrams that we do together are very, very short, because it's not a summary. It's not copying again the information that you have from the book, because that's why you have the book with you. So try to do very short diagrams, because that's the only thing that I want you to do. Just have the important information in the notes, and of course, always doing your wonderful drawings, which are always better than mine. Well, I send you a kiss. A kiss. I hope that you are and your families are healthy. We'll see you around. Keep working as you're doing it, because you're doing it great. Bye.